We're not the biggest fans of James Not So Cleverly round here. He has proven time and time again that he is far, clever initially. Hence, he has very much earned the nickname James Not So Cleverly. Over the past sort of couple of years, he has just again proved time and time again to, do stupid and continuous numerous things. And yet, I will say this now. Even when someone who is a conservative actually does, or even says something right, like in the case of what James Cleverly has just said, he has gone against the Tory rights push to leave the European Court of Human Rights and says that we should not leave it. Now, of course, while I agree with him on that, he has some maybe also not so clever positions afterwards, unfortunately, because, like I say, there is a reason his nickname is James Not So Cleverly. So before we go getting into what Cleverly's been getting up to and what he's been saying, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. As well, there is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there is the Pony Club down below as well, which you can also join as well. So, this, first of all, is interesting because if I were to expect a Tory to oppose leaving the European Court of Human Rights, Cleverly would have actually been one of the last people I would have expected. So when I initially saw this reported, I was quite surprised because, as we've said many, many times, if we were to leave or disparage, or as we are doing at the moment, on course to potentially disregard parts of the European Court of Human Rights, not only will there be retaliatory action from the EU, this will potentially end the withdrawal agreement, potentially starting a trade war which we will not be able to win. This will then also call into question the Good Friday Agreement, because the Good Friday Agreement pretty much relies on the European Court of Human Rights to act as a dispute mechanism, because the Unionists couldn't trust Ireland, and the Republicans, and the Republicans couldn't trust the UK. Getting confused which faction was which there. But needless to say, this acted as sort of the neutral, independent arbiter, a court which both sides could come to trust. And if we leave that, well, bang goes the independent arbiter, and potentially up in smoke goes the Good Friday Agreement, one of the most successful peace agreements that has ended sectarian violence in the world. So leaving the European Court of Human Rights is just flat out not a good idea. And for James Cleverly to actually come forward and say, yeah, leaving the European Court of Human Rights is not a good idea, but bizarrely enough, he hasn't mentioned the two biggest reasons not to leave it, namely, of course, probably the destruction of the withdrawal agreement, and of course the Good Friday Agreement. Instead, Cleverly has come forward and said, well, actually, if we did leave it, we'd probably be joining the club of Russia and Belarus, who are the only European countries not to be in it. Now, admittedly, that is a reason, because obviously there is a reason why Russia and Belarus are not in the European Court of Human Rights, because, well, on the regular, they, like to do numerous things that, go against a lot of what the Human Rights Court would say was probably illegal. And, hey, guys, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And we're here as the European Court of Human Rights to help defend those particular rights that Russia and Belarus pretty much like to abuse on the regular. So while that is certainly a reason, it is not two of the biggest reasons as to why we should be leaving. Now, I'm quite shocked, of course, being the Foreign Secretary, he doesn't seem to realize that there are far too bigger reasons why that would be the case. And instead cleverly goes on to say, oh no, you don't understand. What we can do instead is we need to work with our European partners and we need to reform the European Court of Human Rights. To be honest, I don't know any other European country that would be up for trying to reform the European Court of Human Rights. And again, cleverly is very vague on what he means by the words reform. So, like I say, I don't think many European countries would be up for the type of reforms that cleverly might want to sort of say the European Court of Human Rights should be up for. But of course, this leads on to another story as well. We are now, of course, seeing that this new push by the Tory right, by the Common Sense group, that wants to sort of basically diminish the Section 39 orders, which has stopped basically these deportations over to Rwanda, which they are desperately trying to start as and hail as some sort of win. They are putting that in the bill. Now, this starts an even bigger question, because there is one thing I always say. I do not like the House of Lords. I think it absolutely needs to be reformed, 100%. But sometimes, in cases like this, I'm glad we've got it. And certainly during Brexit, I was very glad we had it, because it was the only sensible place where discussions in and around Brexit were actually taking place. And even the House of Lords Brexit Scrutiny Committee, compared to the one in Westminster, still exists and still holds regularly its government ministers to account for actions over Brexit. So, like I say, sometimes you've got to take the wins when you can. But one interesting thing that has been made very clear by the House of Lords is, if there is a motion which is either to leave the European Court of Human Rights or diminishes judges and decisions made by judges part of the European Court of Human Rights, the Lords won't vote for it. The Lords have been very clear from day one of Brexit that they will not pass anything that essentially goes against international rule of law. And the European Court of Human Rights is international law. Well, not international, but European, but you get the idea. So even if the Tory right do get this through and their amendment to sort of disregard these Section 39 rulings, well, the Lords ain't going to accept it. So already there is yet another big tussle going to be happening in the House of Lords. So that's just a quick update on that. But of course, again, James, not so cleverly, bravo for actually saying that you shouldn't leave. You know, the UK shouldn't leave the European Court of Human Rights. But why did you not mention the two big reasons why we should not leave the European Convention on Human Rights? Yes, I sort of agree with you in the sense of we will be joining that tiny club of Russia and Belarus being the only two European countries that aren't in the European Court of Human Rights. And I agree, it would look very strange indeed. But there are far bigger, far better reasons not to leave the European Court of Human Rights. Namely, of course, not wanting to start a trade war with Europe. Of course, basically Europe basically completely ripping up the withdrawal agreement, and of course also ripping up the Good Friday Agreement as well. I think two far bigger points of to why we should not leave the European Court of Human Rights rather than the reason that Cleverly gave there. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.